It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Jason Heiner joins us, new editor-in-chief at ZDNet. Denise Howell, our internet lawyer, and Harry McCracken, the technologizer. We'll talk about Spotify and the Joe Rogan controversy, Google killing off FLoC, replacing it with Topics. And now that Nvidia is not buying ARM, what is the chip landscape going to look like going forward? Plus, the biggest quarter in Apple history. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 860, recorded Sunday, January 30th, 2022. I don't want to be the cheese in your gruel. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is catching the food that's falling through the cracks of our food system by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off their first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code TWIT. And by Blue Land. Single-use plastic is so year 2000. The thing is, it's 2022, which means it's way past time to make cleaning fun, beautiful, and plastic-free. Right now, you can get 20% off your first order when you go to blueland.com/twit. And by Audible. Audible lets you enjoy all of your audio entertainment in one app. You'll always find the best of what you love or something new to discover. New members can try Audible for 30 days free. Download the Audible app and get started with a free trial at audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/twit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, a show we get together every week. I look forward to it all week long to talk about the latest tech news. I have assembled a cast of all-stars, wonderful people, starting with Denise Howell, longtime host of our show This Week in Law at denisehowell.info, my favorite internet lawyer. Hello, Denise.
The Webb's Law Department at your service. Hello, Leo.
The Webb's Law Department. Do you answer the phone like that?
I should.
Webb's Law Department.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll find some legal questions for you. Actually, there's a big question about Spotify I want to ask all of our panel. Jason Heiner is also here. Brand new job for Jason. Editor-in-chief of ZDNet. Big shot. You're going places, Jason. That's nice. Congratulations.
Thanks, Leo.
Yeah.
Great to be here. And yeah, thrilled to be back with the team at ZDNet, my second tour of duty there, and big things planned for 2022.
Do you get to write anymore, or it's all management now? Huh?
I do. I do. And perhaps I'll have a little bit more time to write. You know, for the last 3 years, I've been working at CNET and driving a lot of change, transformation, and didn't always have as much time to write as I would like, more editing and guiding coverage. And so I might have a little bit more time to write. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you, and it's always nice to see the nice guys win. So that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks, Leo.
Also, Harry McCracken, the technologizer from Fast Company, is here. Hello, Harry.
Hey, Leo. It's great to be here.
Always good to see you. Harry, writing about a whole bunch of stuff these days. Not so much of the history, though, that you were doing before. I hope you get to keep doing your internet history and travels down memory lane and all that stuff.
I actually, my job's evolving a little bit, too, and I expect to be able to write more this year and devote some of that time to history stuff.
Good. I love that. There's nobody, no better observer of this because you like me, we've been there. It's not.
I've seen it.
It's not history for us, but it is for most everybody else. So I think we probably should kick off with Spotify, Joe Rogan, and what's going on there. So Spotify under a little bit of heat last week. 270 physicians, epidemiologists, scientists wrote an open letter saying you gotta do something about Joe Rogan. Joe, of course, hosts the Joe Rogan Experience, probably likely the most listened to podcast in the world. He claims 11 million listeners a week. I don't know if it's that many. It's easy to claim big numbers like that. That's a lot of people. A lot of young people, especially young men, listen to Joe. On December 31st, Rogan had a guest on who claimed to have invented the mRNA vaccine in the face of all evidence to the contrary, and furthermore said it doesn't work and you're being hypnotized into using it. That's stimulated the letter from the physicians and the scientists. Spotify declined to respond. They didn't do anything about Joe Rogan. They've taken others of his episodes down, but they said that did not meet their threshold for a takedown. So the response from other artists has been strong. Neil Young at first said, take my music down if you're not going to take Joe down. Joni Mitchell followed, Nils Lofgren, others. When Neil Young said, take my music down, I think Spotify's thought was, yeah, fine, old man, go ahead. Who cares? But the stock market did. The company lost $4 billion in market value. Its stock price tumbled 12%. We'll see what happens on Monday. That might not hold for very long. But the real question I have for all the three of you is let's start with you because you're editor-in-chief at ZDNet. What is Spotify's responsibility? They hired Rogan. They spent reportedly $100 million to get exclusive access to his podcast. So they're his employer, I guess. I mean, if we're just a show, if we're a show like ours, Spotify wouldn't have any more responsibility over it than anybody else would. Although I have to say Spotify, Apple, and others have pulled down other podcasts. I think Alex Jones famously is hard to find a platform for him. What is Spotify's responsibility, Jason?
Yeah, there's really two fundamental issues, and we'll start with maybe the sort of the first one. Getting back to the sort of the base principles of this is like, what's your responsibility as a platform to have a certain level of freedom of expression, right? So that are you the arbiter of taste of truth, because truth is somewhat malleable. Or because when you do that, then you open yourself up to, claims of bias. So this goes back to the beginning of Twitter. Twitter sort of originally stated, we're just the platform. Whatever people put on here is up to them. And the merits of it, or the ability to publish things that not everybody likes, is okay, because you have to put up with that in order to allow everyone to have a platform. Well, we see how that worked out for them, right? Eventually, they came under a lot of pressure in a number of different ways because of things that were done on their platform that then became even dangerous or destructive in some way to society. It's the same with Spotify. So they are going to be under continuing pressure. And I think there was a certain sense that if this was just Neil Young, who is a bit of, can be a bit iconoclastic, right? He is a person who likes to take stands.
Yeah. He's very vocal. Yeah.
Exactly. Very vocal. If it was just Neil Simon, I think Spotify might have said, we're still going to sort of stick to our guns on the platform angle. But once it elevated from there to others and spread, and the idea of this, well, now it's sort of a bigger problem where there's more societal backlash against this, and there's a lot more pressure. So that's the first piece, is this platform issue. The second is the fact that their strategy, their podcast strategy, has not really worked out as well as they thought.
Yeah. That's clear, right? They spent $100 million for Joe Rogan is a lot of money. And they bought Call Her Daddy for $60 million reportedly. They spent $500 million on acquisitions of Gimlet Media and Anchor FM.
Yep. They have a lot invested. And from what I can't remember exactly how much of this they have announced publicly, but the understanding is in the industry that Joe Rogan is by far their most popular podcast.
I think he ranks number one on their list. Yeah.
And so this is where it starts to get tricky from a business standpoint. It's a business that's already struggling. He's the only, probably the biggest hit and maybe the only real hit that they've got. And so now they have also a very difficult question that's going to hit them in the pocketbook, where a strategy that's already struggling, and that they're, looking at, maybe do we have to reboot this or pivot it? And now their biggest moneymaker is under a lot of heat. Yeah. And so it's a twofold question for them, and they're in a difficult spot, and we hope that they figure out a way to find a good path forward.
Broadcaster Brene Brown has said, I don't want my shows on Spotify. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, who were reportedly working on a show for Spotify and been paid a lot of money to do it, now are expressing concerns.
Yeah.
I should mention, I did not know this, but part of the story is that Neil Young himself had polio when he was 5 years old, contracted polio 2 years before there was a polio vaccine. Spent a lot of time in the hospital relearning how to walk. People forget what a scourge polio was in the 50s. And when the Salk vaccine came out, I'm sure there were some people who refused to get it, but I don't think there were many. It was a terrifying disease. And I think that was almost universal support of the vaccination at that time. He is a vaccine supporter because of that. He also has epilepsy and type 1 diabetes. So he's very kind of aware of this. Is there a First Amendment story, Denise? Internet's attorney.
Hi. Quick answer, no. There's no First Amendment story
here.
This is not the government. This is not the government. This is a private entity making decisions, and it has to confront a couple of factors here.
Sometimes people
makes those decisions.
Sometimes people use the words First Amendment as a way of saying free speech. Mm-hmm. Two different things. We do have free speech, but he works for a company, and any company has the right to say to their employees, hey, you can't say that.
That's right. So it is a Spotify question of what sort of information or disinformation it's going to support on its platform. We've been through this on other platforms. Spotify is no different than decisions that Facebook has had to make, Twitter has had to make, as Jason has pointed out, except for the relationship that you pointed out, Leo, where they're, as you say, there's more of a partnership here between Spotify.
They're not just publishing his podcast. Yes. They own his podcast.
Right.
Which gives them a higher responsibility, I would think, right?
Not from a legal standpoint. From a legal standpoint, they just have to decide, if they can weather this storm of the adverse public opinion, other artists pulling out. I see also Joni Mitchell and Nils Lofgren have jumped in and said, we're going to pull our content. So it's kind of like, the whole close your account movement with Facebook. How much of that are they willing to, Meta, how much of that are they willing to put up with? And how much do they think they can weather of that kind of adverse, both, financial impact directly from what they're able to offer on their platform, and also the adverse public opinion? Do people really want to support the platform? The adverse stock price impact? So there's a lot there they're going to have to make some business decisions about. I hope they have a good crisis PR firm, good crisis management team on board to help them make these decisions. And I think Jason's dead on that they're going to have to act responsibly, not just to manage public opinion and their bottom line, but lingering out there in the background, even though there's no legal requirement that I can think of right now. Certainly there have been rumblings among congresspeople, the Surgeon General of the United States has made several statements about misinformation and their lack of patience for it. So I think we can.
This is somewhat more complicated because while some of us might say saying the vaccine doesn't work and don't do it is misinformation, others say it's just an opinion. And so it's a little different in public health because yes, it's just an opinion, but if it's an opinion that is wrong from the terms of public health, then it's more than just an opinion, right?
I think the Surgeon General of the United States would say so.
Yeah.
And that's what they have to get out in front of, and not be the poster child for some sort of regulatory action or congressional action that is meant to curb this kind of thing.
Well, how could Congress weigh in? I mean, doesn't the First Amendment protect Spotify just as much as it does Joe Rogan?
So, yes, you raise a good point that Congress is not going to be able to do content.
Then it gets thrown out in court immediately.
Yes, I think that Congress is less of a threat, but you're right. There are limits to the First Amendment, and if it is a public health consideration that is decided, yes, it would face a First Amendment challenge. But I think it would be, if you could demonstrably say that this is adverse to public health, that a court could very much uphold whatever was put in place. If I were Spotify, I would certainly want to get out in front of this.
Well, Daniel Ek did publish a long piece today, probably written by Crisis PR, a Crisis PR firm, in which he, said what any Crisis PR firm would say he should say. We haven't been transparent around the policies that guide our content more broadly, but we have had rules in years for place. Kind of, sorry, we haven't been more clear. Today we're publishing our long-standing platform rules, which apparently they had never published before. We're working, and this is, I guess, the response, and I think this is probably the right response. We're working to add a content advisory to any podcast episode that includes a discussion about COVID-19, directing listeners to our dedicated COVID-19 hub, which provides access to, he says, data-driven facts. I've always thought maybe the thing to do is just to say right at the beginning of the Joe Rogan show, hey, Joe Rogan's a comedian, and his opinions and the opinions of his guests are his own. Please consult your physician before believing them, or something.
Right. There was a time back last fall when people were kind of feeling this way about Fox News as well.
Right.
That there were some commentators who had gone on that network and said some things that I think prompted the Surgeon General to come out and say, hey, we need some more responsibility around the information that's being put out there. But I think you raise a really good point too, Leo, is that, here we are. This is a different format. Podcasting is not an largely scripted medium, although there's a lot of scripted podcasting out there. But when you're talking about discussion and people sitting around a table or a virtual table, as in our case here, trying to wrap their head around the issues of the day and doing their best with that, even if they're sort of fumbling and stumbling along and they don't get everything right, there's value to that too.
There's also, and I probably should have said this, in the contract language that says Spotify has exclusive distribution rights but does not own the show, which gives them a little bit of a distance from the show. Harry, what should Spotify have done? Should they put a disclaimer on there? Should they take it down? Should they ignore it and just say, hey, it's a podcast, anything goes?
I mean, my guess is that the stuff that Daniel Ek is saying today won't make anybody terribly happy. And what it reminds me of is what the YouTubes of the world were doing a year to a year and a half ago. They started out initially saying that we will put labels on stuff and direct people to health information pages. And when they did that, it really didn't make anybody terribly happy. And they ended up tightening the screws a lot more on misinformation. I think it's possible that Spotify will have to do that too. I know some people thought that Neil Young expected that Spotify might choose him over Joe Rogan, which was not going to happen. It seems a lot more.
They called his bluff right away on that one.
Right. Well, he really raised the visibility. We're having this discussion now because he did that, and because people like Joni Mitchell, who also had polio, being of the same age group as Neil Young, reacted to what he did. And it really feels a little bit like Spotify, who has this heritage in music, which is usually a bit less controversial than spoken word content, is still sort of catching up with where the rest of the internet was a lot earlier in the pandemic.
Yeah. And I think the response of the artist is interesting because it's not like Twitter or YouTube. It's a little bit like YouTube, but really the artists are what make Spotify money. And so Spotify's reluctance to censor Joe Rogan because he makes them a lot of money, they spend a lot of money for the podcast, is offset by other artists saying, well, you can't make money on my stuff in that case. And that actually is hitting Spotify where they live. I wonder, I think Neil Young probably knew his voice alone was insufficient, but probably hoped that others would follow his lead, and that, all that would be left on Spotify is Kid Rock, Ted Nugent, and and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. It's just another case, like Twitter, like YouTube, where these platforms are challenged, and then of course it always becomes so politicized. And I think that's interesting too. It's become about politics, not about public health, not about what's right or wrong, but just, what's politically expedient.
I guess as that more shoes will drop. I mean, it seems pretty unthinkable that this could involve any kind of breakup with Joe Rogan, but but more stuff could happen. We have no idea about the conversations going on behind the scenes at Spotify, and we might never know those. And will Joe Rogan double down on this stuff? Will he pull back?
That's an interesting question. I wonder if Daniel Ek called Joe and said, hey, it would be nice if next episode you might say something like, hey, I'm just a comedian. You should probably consult a variety of sources before you decide what to do. There are people, I know people who aren't getting vaccines because of Joe Rogan.
Wow.
He's really influential.
He's very influential. He also sells vitamins. He also sells products that claim to boost your immune system. He's kind of promoting his own commercial interests in this a little bit as well, which I think is reprehensible.
I have a question I'd like to ask you all about this. Why isn't Apple having this problem? Well, obviously they don't have Joe Rogan on board, but
well,
that's
the difference, isn't it? So Spotify isn't just a directory of podcasts.
Yeah.
Apple's just a directory of podcasts. So Apple, I think, I don't know, rightly or wrongly says, well, he's not our boy.
Yeah.
But they did pull Alex Jones down. It took a long time and a lot of pressure.
And Apple was tweeting about the fact that they still have all the Neil Young you can listen to. So
that's right.
Had a little fun.
They jumped on that one. They said, oh, yeah, we're the home of Neil Young.
A lot of people have pointed out that you can listen to Steve Bannon by going to Apple Podcasts, which is, you might be able to make the case that you shouldn't be able to do that, but it's quite different given that Steve Bannon is not a content partner of Apple or their signature podcast, and they're just really pointing to it in the way that Google points to reprehensible websites.
It's part of the new world because when media was controlled by big companies, you could say, well, if the New York Times publishes an article that's bad, we can go after them. But podcasts, for the most part, are not owned by anybody. These companies would like to say, well, we're just a directory. But the minute Apple pulls down Alex Jones, suddenly it's not just a directory anymore. They're making editorial decisions. So they've kind of opened up this Pandora's box. I, for one, don't want to see any company like Apple or Spotify or Microsoft or any company have the power to say to an independent podcast, you may not exist. Google has that power for websites. You may not exist. Nobody can find you. By the way, I should also point out, Neil Young hated, at least for a long time, hated Apple because of the quality of the music. He said, never listen to iTunes. My songs sound terrible on iTunes. Maybe that's changed now that Apple does lossless as well. But
Ponyo? Wasn't that the name
Pono,
of the
yeah. I have
Pono,
a Pono player.
it.
Yeah, I have a Pono player.
Yeah.
Neil Young
it was a wonderful idea.
Actually, the company has placed a playlist of Neil Young's music, I hear, right into the browse section, right under We Love Neil.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's just blatant commercialism. That's just blatant, that's not saying we love vaccines. That's, I swear.
There's plenty of crazy stuff on Apple's podcast.
As there should be.
Directory.
Don't you think? There should be. I don't want Apple to decide what you can hear.
Right? Somebody else.
Right.
Exactly. So I think there's a couple factors here. One is that it is the fact that Spotify owns it, as you said, Leo. And
they don't own it. They only own exclusive rights to distribute.
Sorry, thank you.
And that's a big distinction. It's not their show. They just have exclusive distribution. They signed a deal with Joe saying, "Oh, no one else can carry it."
It's a little closer relationship than them just listing it in their directory.
That's right.
So there is that piece. And then there's the fundamental issue of freedom, right? Like we all have a certain amount of freedom until that freedom it infringes on somebody else's freedom or affects somebody else in a negative way. And so that's written into all of these principles going back to some of the sort of foundations of the idea of democracy and representative democracy and republics and freedoms and all of these things. And so there was no problem with this until it started having a lot of negative effects on a lot of people, and people are literally getting sick and dying because of some of the things that Rogan is saying. And it would be one thing if what he was saying was true, but because there's also an aspect of there's some creative facts in what he's doing, then he has a certain, from just a societal standpoint, he has a certain responsibility that is sort of being misapplied and is hurting people.
Actually,
and
you're the first person to actually say it falls on Joe's shoulders, not Spotify's. It falls on Rogan's shoulders. Right?
Well, I'm sure they're having some conversations along those lines.
Yeah, I mean,
Spotify and Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I that's an interesting point to make. I kind of want to defend Rogan's right to say whatever the hell stupid thing he wants to say. I would hate to see the show pulled down for that reason. That's why I like a disclaimer. By the way,
let's be clear.
Yeah.
Even if it is pulled down, the freedom of speech part comes in of like, it's not his right to be on Spotify.
He can't shout
his
fire
right
in a crowded theater.
Yeah, it's his right. So he can go and I'm sure if Spotify were to stop it, I'm sure he would just spin up his own site and potentially, put it, offer it directly or offer it on another platform, or he has a big enough audience that people would probably just go to joerogan.com and watch the show every day or whatever the case
let's not
may
forget,
be.
Joe Rogan's a UFC commentator, former host of the Man Show. He's a comic.
Yeah.
And comics say stupid things all the time.
John Gruber pointed out that if Spotify were to kill their deal with Joe Rogan, he'd be available on every podcast player, and in all likelihood, he'd have a larger audience than he does now. And therefore, if you are not crazy about him spreading this message, him being and Spotify exclusive is probably a good thing in terms of tamping it down at least a tiny bit.
That's a good point.
Right. He wasn't hurting before the Spotify deal.
Well,
not at all.
Here is a data point from The Verge's Hot Pod, which covers this medium. They talked to an ad buyer who also requested anonymity to speak freely about rates, that says Spotify upped prices for all of its acquired and licensed shows. A host-read ad on Joe Rogan's show used to cost, the kind of ads we do, tens of thousands of dollars prior to him going exclusive to Spotify. Next year, to get an ad on this year, I guess it would be now, on the Joe Rogan Experience, the minimum spend, $1 million, CPMs of upward of $60. That's actually not a super high CPM, but if he has 11 million listeners, that's why it's $1 million. So even if they paid him 100 million, all it's going to take is 100 ads, and they're back, baby. Less than a year's worth of advertising. So he's worth a lot of money to Spotify. And the other reason Spotify's been spending this kind of money is because the music industry has kind of had a chokehold on them. The music industry is who decides what Spotify is going to pay artists, whether they're going to get the artists at all. Spotify was looking for something they could own that would be out of the hands of the music industry, and podcasts were their next great hope. And apparently, if they're charging $1 million for an ad on Rogan, that was a good thing to do. That's an amazing number. All right.
I like to think most people are smart enough to know that you should not get your facts from the Joe Rogan show. Like, it's an entertainment medium. That said, there are, like you said, there are people out there that are not getting
where
the
it's
shot
it's not somebody's going, I don't know what to think. Let me ask Joe Rogan. It's not that. It's much more somebody who's leaning in that direction anyway. And then Rogan gives them the strength, the power, and maybe some information to do that. If you're young, he says, if you're young, your immune system's good, you shouldn't get the vaccine. You don't need to get the vaccine. And somebody who's leaning that way anyway, that's just all they need to say, yeah, that's good. I didn't want it anyway. I don't think he's convincing people.
Yeah.
Confirmation of existing biases.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, I just don't want to see. I don't want to see censorship, and because I just put myself in that. What if all of a sudden all of these companies said, "We don't like people advocating masks and vaccines. We're going to keep you off the air, Leo." I would be upset, and rightly so, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I don't know if. So I can see myself on the other side of this one. I have a feeling it's not the last you're going to hear about it. Denise Howell is here. It's great to see you. How's the business going? Tell me the name of it again.
Fits with Fits.
Fits with Fits
is a secondhand clothing experiment that I was dabbling in. I don't know that I'm going to continue dabbling in it. I don't know. I'm trying to. I'm at a juncture, Leo, where my kid is about to graduate from high school.
What?
And I'm doing a lot of self-assessment and what's next kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's going to be moving out soon, Denise.
Yeah.
Empty nest.
Yes.
I can't believe your son is ready to graduate from high school. He was this tall. He was just a little guy.
I know. Well, look at Henry.
I know. My daughter turns 30 in a couple of months. That's crazy.
I can't believe Abby's 30. That's incredible.
Insane. Well, I love the idea and I love your style. So I hope you do. I hope you keep doing something with style.
I look a bit like an Irish fisherman today.
I know.
Thanks a lot.
But no, apparently that's the sweater. Do you know about that? The sweater?
No, I don't know about the sweater.
Oh, well, I'm trying to remember what show it was where he's wearing a ratty old sweater, but it became like the thing. It was an Irish fisherman's sweater. Mm-hmm. And, it was some of the young people we have on the show told me about the sweater. I think it was Christina Warren. I can't remember the story, but anyway. Yes. It's good to have you and your sweater on the show.
Thank you. Yes,
Technologizer.
We're a package.
Harry McCracken, thank you for being here. Always great to see you. And, of course, to the new editor-in-chief of ZDNet, big shot, Jason Heiner. Great to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by, I love this. I don't know if you've tried this. It's so cool. Imperfect Foods. This was a company that was started on, I think, a premise that I really like, which is that a lot of the U.S. food supply just gets thrown out or fed to animals because it doesn't fit our conception of a perfect food. An apple that's perfect and red, or a pomegranate the size of your head, or a carrot that doesn't look like Richard Nixon. But that's good food. Imperfect Foods was started to eliminate all that food waste that's going on. I didn't know this. 35%, more than a third of the food supply in the U.S. goes unsold or uneaten because grocers won't carry it because it just doesn't look perfect. Well, you can help with Imperfect Foods. You'll reduce food waste, you'll save your own time on grocery shopping, and you'll eat more fresh and delicious food. And it really, they call it imperfect. Some of it, I admit those little apples, they're like the ones I used to get that fell off the apple tree. They're sweeter than the giant apples. They have more flavor. Grocers don't want to carry them because they don't, they're not shelf perfect for 100 days or whatever. Imperfect Foods sources foods that would otherwise fall through the cracks and brings it to you. It's a great way for you to do something, save money, save driving. It's a grocery delivery service that offers not just fruits and vegetables, but an entire line of sustainable groceries that taste delicious and reduce waste. Stuff that the grocers couldn't sell, extras, that kind of thing. We get heritage chickens from Imperfect Foods, and I guess they're too small if the grocer wants giant breasts. But they're the most flavorful. It's all we'll eat now. It's incredible. They're heritage, delicious chickens. I love Imperfect Foods. First thing to do is go and see if they deliver in your area, because I'm sad to say, even though I'm a big fan and they deliver here, they don't deliver everywhere. So go to imperfectfoods.com. Once you sign up, you can personalize. It's a weekly grocery order. Fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, yummy snacks. Saves us a lot of grocery shopping time. You get your order on the same day every week, which is nice, makes it easy to plan. Ours is Thursday. But one of the reasons they do that is they deliver weekly by neighborhood to reduce emissions. So their trucks produce 25 to 75% fewer emissions than individual trips if you had to go to the grocery store. And Imperfect Foods customers on average save 6 to 8 pounds of food that would just be thrown out with every order. Plus, say goodbye to packaging guilt. That's always something I worry about with food delivery services. We used to get it from a grocery store. Everything had to come in big plastic bags. No, Imperfect Foods is the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your package after every order. It's cardboard for the most part. Very, very little plastic. I really love Imperfect Foods. If you want to try it, if I've convinced you, and I'll look at the website, it'll probably give you some even more ideas. Go to imperfectfoods.com. We're going to get you 20% off your first 4 orders if you use the promo code TWIT. Imperfectfoods.com, promo code TWIT, 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value at imperfectfoods.com. And trust me, I think you're going to love it. I'm so happy with it. Promo code TWIT. Join the movement. Really love these guys. Let's see. Let's move on to another topic. No more FLoC. Oh, Google. I don't get Google. There's something there. Anyway, they said, they announced publicly, no more third-party cookies. Then advertisers said, yeah, well, how are we supposed to target ads? So Google announced the Federated Learning of Cohorts, which is the worst retronym ever. They have now announced that, no, that didn't work. So they've scrapped FLoC, and now they're back with something called topics. The EFF, when FLoC was announced, FLoC was never released. I mean, it was in beta. The idea of it was your browser would observe your habits and put you in a cohort. They never said how big the cohorts were, how many cohorts there were, but essentially a cohort of types that when you went to somebody's webpage, they could request your FLoC ID, which would, by the way, change every few weeks based on your browser usage. And then they would know what kind of ads to show you. So the idea was it's a more impersonal way of targeting ads. The EFF and others said, well, we know how de-anonymizing works. It's probably not anonymous. They found all sorts of problems. Eventually, Google just said, all right, fine. We're going to do topics instead. Again, you have to be using Chrome, although Chrome is about 63% of the world browser market. I think it's even more in the United States. Chrome will watch what you do and group you into a topic. One of the things about topics Google likes is there aren't topics for sensitive topics like mental health or drugs or whatever. Google can eliminate topics that it doesn't want advertising based on, guns, things like that. And they think maybe it'll be more anonymous because it changes, it rotates. I think the problem Google has is, on the one hand, they hear people like us say, privacy, privacy, privacy. And on the other hand, they hear advertisers saying, but we want to know more about people. Is topics a good replacement for FLoC, Denise?
I like where they're going. I mean, it depends, how much you trust Google when they say things like, we're doing this, I'm paraphrasing now, we're doing this out in the open. FLoC was a trial. We learned a lot from it. Here's a direct quote from Google's privacy sandbox lead, Ben Galbraith. He says, Topics replaces our FLoC proposal, and I want to emphasize that this whole process of sharing a proposal, doing a trial, gathering feedback, and then iterating on the designs, this is the whole open development process that we wanted for the sandbox and really shows the process working as intended.
We meant to do this. We meant to do this.
Right. Right. So, I mean, you can take that with a grain of salt, but I mean, if they're sincere, then that is how things should work.
In their defense, they have been doing it in the open, and people responded, and they said, "Okay, we'll try something else." So
right, exactly. So the problem that they have that you haven't mentioned yet, that has advertisers up in arms, is they're still concerned about Google having all this data itself. And that it being the gatekeeper for all things targeted advertising.
Yeah.
That's not making third parties happy who also want to be able to do effective targeted advertising. But, I mean, I do think that they're innovating in this area, and that I'd rather actually get an ad that was based on some sort of topical basis rather than, all the creepy other ways that ads are targeted at you.
And I've always said, people should want targeted ads. It's a waste of your time to see ads for things you don't care about. Mm-hmm. I don't need to see barbed wire ads because I'm not a barbed wire buyer. Google is, I have to say, probably partly aware of the fact that their dominance in advertising is slipping. Not only is Facebook a challenge, but so is Amazon, so is Apple. All of a sudden, they're not the only place you can go to get targeted ads. So I think they're very reluctant to stop doing some sort of targeting because Facebook's sitting there going, we'll target all you want. What do you want to know?
Right.
We'll tell you anything.
Yeah, this is a fine line they have to tread given all their antitrust concerns in both the U.S. and abroad.
Right. In fact, the bill that Amy Klobuchar and Marsha Blackburn's bill to get companies to stop self-dealing, Google, let's get to its name, Google, Amazon, has now gotten out of the Judiciary Committee and could be brought to the floor of the Senate any time now. So, Google's right to be a little bit worried about this. Harry, where do you fall on the privacy spectrum here? Should targeted advertising exist at all?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there is some value in seeing ads that there's at least some chance they might be useful to you. What's worrisome is just the degree to which at Google and advertisers and other companies have gotten so unbelievably sophisticated at crawling through what you're doing online and assembling a really detailed profile of you that you don't really know what it consists of, how long they're going to keep it. FLoC seemed to be at least a little bit of a move in the right direction, and topics seem a little bit better just in terms of making it possible to target you without doing such a deep dive into stuff about you in such a secretive way. I do think a lot of this is completely outside of Google's control, though. It may be that one of the reasons why FLoC did not take off is because Google was so completely unsuccessful in getting other browser companies to want to be involved with it. Not hugely surprising, given that they don't have quite as much invested in ad targeting as Google does. And whether or not anybody else will sign on for topics, I don't know. I haven't seen any news about whether the other browser companies are enthusiastic about it. But if it's a Chrome-only thing, it seems like it's nowhere near as powerful as if it does become a little bit of an industry standard.
Jason, I know you don't sell ads. And your office is way down the hall from the guy in charge of that. But, a lot of the publications you've worked at forever are ad supported. Certainly mine are.
Yeah.
I am somewhat sympathetic to, I don't think we need to target quite as much as we have been, but I understand why advertisers don't want to waste ad spend either. And ads are important to your business as they are mine.
For sure. And I mean, for 2 decades, I've been working in ad-supported media.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do that if I didn't think that there was some value that users get from well-targeted ads. as you said, much better than sort of general things that many of which they don't need. And so because of that, when you're seeing a lot of ads you don't need, that typically means like a publisher is going to then show you a lot more ads to try to find one that you would like, right?
Good point.
So
one targeted ad as opposed to 100 untargeted ads. That's a very good point. Yeah.
That's right. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I do fundamentally believe that the solution to this is not finding these like little ways behind the scenes to try to, engineer better systems. I know this is a traditional view, but I feel like the best way to do it for a publisher is to create a relationship, a deeper relationship with your audience, to give them something that makes the relationship so that they want to log in, they want to be a subscriber. And when they're a subscriber, they get a better experience. And then they get more targeted ads because they are tacitly, or not tacitly, they're directly giving you information to say, I understand that you and trust that you will give me a better targeted ad and a better experience by being logged in and giving you my subscriber data. I think that's the core. Now, what happens instead is those folks that are the most loyal, that are the most logged in, that are the most the ones that turn the most traffic and are the most engaged, we tend to take them for granted. And so because of that, we don't give them that experience. And instead we say, oh, well, we're going to try to find a way to monetize every user by, doing cookies and that kind of thing. So I believe that as an industry, we dropped the ball on this a long time ago. And that's why there was a user revolt against cookies, and rightly so. So that and the comeuppance has come on that. And now I do believe that the answer is not to find other sneaky ways around this, like digital fingerprinting and that kind of thing. But instead, it's to actually re-engage with users and to give them an engaged experience where they'll want to give you more data and grow trust. I think that's the only way forward. Things like this, like FLoC and topics, are helpful, but they're mostly helpful for the large group of users who are not logged in, who you don't have a deeper relationship with, and who, you're still trying to make a little bit of money off of.
Yeah, you and I are in a similar boat where our stuff is specific. It's really targeted at, in my case, tech enthusiast audience.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's everything we do is targeted, and so our advertisers kind of know what they're getting.
Yeah. I'd love to push back on what Jason just said, that's got to be the way forward. And I'm wondering if there's a way forward that could involve less data collection from any of the users. And maybe this is just, because I'm deeply impacted by the fact that I've been involved with the Twit network since, almost its inception. And this is the way you've always done ads, Leo. But I think it's so effective to, instead of having targeted ads, have curated ads. The ad you just read, that Imperfect Foods, I'm writing down the code. I'm going, that's just a great idea. Yeah. I'm totally going to sign up for that. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of people out there that, would love for there to be a way for them to receive ads, not just on podcasts, but in their browsing experience, that someone had selected because they think this is a good product, good service, valuable, it's been vetted somehow, and it's not necessarily the thing that you're out there searching for, but it's the thing you might need anyway.
It's not going to work for everybody, though. I mean, if you're Coca-Cola or Budweiser, you're not targeted, right? Mm-hmm. You're brand advertising. So then you just buy, football games because you want the biggest numbers. So I guess that's okay. I mean, we'll never get those advertisers. Mm-hmm. People hate, I think part of this is people just hate ads. That's part of the problem. Right. And there's nothing we could do about that if we're ad supported. What we did is we started Club Twit so that people who really hate ads could just buy a membership and then never hear an ad again. That's one way to do it. I don't know. Cory Doctorow calls ad blockers the largest consumer boycott of all time because so many people use them now. And don't ever see ads or hear ads, and that's kind of that makes it hard.
Part of the reason for that is that not only are you receiving ads that, infringe on your privacy so that they can serve you a certain ad, but the whole experience is so awful when you get 6 pop-ups in a video and it's slowing down your browsing, and there's just no there's no incentive to allow them to keep invading your life.
It is so
I like
bad.
Denise's pushback though too. Sorry, go ahead, Harry.
I was just going to say, like last week, I was researching a new pair of glasses, and so I looked at the site of a eyeglasses company that shall remain nameless, although its initials are W.
We know who they are. Yeah.
Then I went out and I bought them, but I'm still getting these freaking ads for the exact model that I'd been researching on almost every page on the internet, and I have no idea how to get rid of them.
That's part of the problem.
It's the least useful ad in the world.
Such a crappy system. It doesn't work well. Recommendation engines notoriously are horrible. Yeah, why does Amazon keep trying to sell me the thing I just bought? Amazon, you ought to know, of all people, I just bought that.
I do like, I want to follow up and say, like, I like Denise's pushback on this, because I was just, I was thinking about the fact that you all very nicely, Leo, like your team sent me an invitation to Club Twit, and I actually haven't activated, because when I listen to your shows, especially like this show, maybe most of all, this version of your many shows, I want to hear the ads, because you actually
Thank you, Jason. I love you.
have some good stuff on
love
here.
you, man.
And I can't tell you how many times I've bought whatever dang thing it is.
You know, it's funny. You're not alone. There's actually people in Club Twit who complained, and we actually have in our Discord server a channel that's called All the Ads. That's the if you want to listen to the ads that you're not getting in your Club Twit version of the feed, you can get them here.
I have bought more things off of this show than literally anything else that I consume. But it's maybe well targeted to me.
You're just being nice, sir. You really.
I'm not just being nice. I truly mean that. So that's why I was grokking the feedback.
You're gonna like actually all 4 advertisers today. This is unusual. And this is, by the way, one of the things that's changed are what we call B2C. They're consumer products. One of the things that's really changed, maybe it's because of COVID in our business. I think it's also because publications like eWeek and PC Week are gone. And so it's hard for enterprise businesses to reach other enterprises. Like if you're a security company selling security software, where you go, you write, people, they're buying ads on CNN, like that's the audience you want. So we're doing more and more of that kind of B2B, business to business advertising, which I don't have the same affinity for, because I'm not the business. I'm not somebody buying it. But that's because we're targeted in the same way PC Week and eWeek were targeted. That's how PC Week and eWeek were free, because they knew they were reaching the audience that those advertisers wanted. It seems to me a good model. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but it seems to me a good model.
Yeah, but you're not targeted in a creepy way, which is nice.
We're targeted because we know you like tech because you're listening to the show, for crying out loud.
People self-select into
self-selecting. Yeah.
Yes. And I echo Jason. There are so many things I bought from the ads on our various shows that have vastly improved my life. So
the trend is away from that, and I'm not I'm here I am. I'm an old timer in podcasting. You know, the way it used to be. But what's happening in podcasting now, partly because of Spotify, big part because of Spotify, is no more host-read ads. They're injected. It's direct ad insertion, where it's programmatically injected. And that's, by the way, partly because podcasts can't track you, but at least if you're downloading, your ads are literally injected in when you download the podcast, because then they know your IP address and they at least can geo-target you. And if they have other information, they might know who you are. And so then those ads are much more targeted than the ads when you buy a Twit ad. You're buying, anybody who listens to the show, and that's the trend. Which means, and this is why I hate ad targeting, it brings the whole thing down. It makes advertising worse, not better.
How so?
Because instead of these human-crafted ads aimed at an audience that would be interested in the show, the ads that you say work, you're just going to get a injected ad that was recorded by somebody else based on your IP address. And I don't, well, maybe they are more effective. That's what everybody's buying now. But I think it's not that they're more effective. It's that that's what happens when you start going down the road of ad targeting. Advertisers think that's what they want. It's certainly easier for agencies to sell. So that's how the advertising goes. And it's a vicious circle because then those ads are less appealing. And so people block them more. They don't like them as much. So then, just as you said, Jason, when they start not reading them or seeing them, you got to buy more ads. It's a bad direction.
I think we've hit on a business model somebody needs to create, which is curated advertising. You buy
that's what we do.
You agree to get the ads.
Yeah.
And
it's artisanal advertising. Just for you.
I think there's a company with that name.
It works great at Twit scale, and
that's the problem.
And the scale of many podcasts. The question is there any way to scale that up to Google scale? I mean, the original Google advertising approach was fantastic back when it was pretty much purely about you go to Google, you search for something, and you see text ads next to your search results relating to the terms you searched for. That was in some ways the most perfect form of advertising ever invented. But what Google is doing today is so much more complex and complicated and invasive than that ever was.
Yeah.
And they're losing. They can't win that game against Facebook. Ultimately, Facebook has so much more data, and they have shown that they have no qualms in using it, and then they make it because they can target you so narrowly. It's also incredibly cheap, right? You can only you can target the ones that you want, and you don't have to pay for the ones that you don't want, and because of that, the economies of scale are ridiculous.
Doesn't Google still do search ads, though? I mean, that's still the bulk of their business, isn't it? Bulk of their revenue.
Yeah. That experience has gotten way worse lately, too, though, because quite often now the ads take up the entire page above the scroll in a way they never did before. They're no longer off on the side and inconspicuous. They are sometimes all you see until you start to roll down the page.
That's, I guess, what my point was.
It reached a horrible sorry, Lee, I was just going to say it reached a horrible point this last year after the iPhone launch. If you would have looked at the iPhone, if you search iPhone and you went to the page on Google after that, you would have seen that, to Harry's point, almost 2/3 of those units were one way or another different paid. Because it was the carriers, it was accessory makers, it was everybody. And they had essentially, you saw what Google looks like when every ad unit is bought. And the experience for the user was really terrible. Also, Apple had to buy ads on there essentially to get their stuff
defensively,
front and center.
Defensively,
right? Exactly, defensively. And so so for in the past, like CNET, where I've worked for the last 3 years, we've had a wonderful way to optimize and get the most useful information out to our readers through Google. This year, it was very difficult, near impossible, because almost all of that real estate, the usable real estate, was purchased.
I guess that was my point all along was you start going down this road, it gets more and more predatory. It gets more and more unpleasant. People rebel more. And now you have this contentious environment where people hate ads and they have to spy on you to do the ads, and people hate that. And it's just gone down a very bad road. And I think Google made a mistake. Maybe they didn't have any choice, but they made a mistake. This was not the right way to go. And I, for one, no, I'm not going to say that. I pledge to you that we will continue to do host-read ads for down-home products nobody ever heard of. So there.
Yay! There's a distinction that I'd like to toss into the discussion between the ads, the advertising that we're talking about where people are buying ad placement by Google on a web page, and then the ads that platforms serve you. As Jason was saying, that Facebook has all this data. That there is a distinctly different experience, or at least from my anecdotal use of platforms, I am pretty ruthless about, if they're going to serve me ads, I am going to block advertisers that I don't want to hear from, and I'm going to use their tools to tell them, okay, that's not relevant, not relevant, not relevant. And now I actually, on both Twitter and Instagram, I don't use Facebook proper, but on Twitter and Instagram, I will say that my ad experience is not bad.
No,
and
in fact, that's why I have to stop using Instagram, because they're so damn good. I always buy crap I don't want.
Right. But sometimes I buy crap, just like, I'm writing down twit codes. Sometimes I'm actually grateful for the ads that get served to me there.
Half of the stuff I buy online, I buy because of Instagram ads. It's a very effective platform. It really is.
It would be better if those ads were actually, instead of, being targeted to your interests, and then you're rolling the dice on whether it's a piece of crap or not, whether there was some sort of vetting that went into the products that you're buying there.
They're not vetted, I guess.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes you luck out. I bought the greatest thing off Instagram the other day, and it's very targeted at me because I'm a skier and I ski with my phone, and you're constantly getting your phone out to take pictures or to
I saw your
do
picture
your work-life balance.
Your knees lost the battle. And
my knees actually didn't lose. Well, my knees lost to the fact that I wanted to go skiing. But yeah, they're kind of in pain now. I was up in Canada skiing.
It looked amazing.
Last week
that
with
looked
a bunch
like
of
powder.
18-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was some very nice skiing. But on that trip, I brought with me this thing that I bought on Instagram that attaches to your jacket and keeps your phone from falling out or off.
That's what I need.
It's the most brilliant thing. And I would never have found it but for that Instagram ad. And I was happy to have it.
So where were you?
Canada, British Columbia.
Oh, it's beautiful. Are you at Whistler or?
No,
beautiful.
Way in the middle of nowhere, outside of in the Monashees and the Caribous are the mountain ranges.
And did you bring your personal photographer with you or what?
No, Wouldn't it be nice if
it looks like you got I have a guy. He does all my stills.
Yeah,
this is great.
Thank you. We had such a nice time, and my goal was just to make sure
Look at
that I had 3 18-year-olds with me who were, they're far more aggressive skiers than I am.
Yeah, they are.
And we met some really nice people from Oregon and just had the greatest time.
Fun.
Yes, it was a fabulous trip.
Yeah, this morning I shaved with a razor blade I bought on Instagram. I'm wearing Instagram underwear right now.
That might be TMI.
By the way, this is another example. If you buy a razor on Instagram, you will then get razor blade ads from every other because there's 100 razor blade companies for some reason. They're all trying to sell you now. Well, if you like that, you'll love ours. No, thank you. I'm happy. I got what I want. I'm not against advertising. I'm really not. It's what supports us, is what keeps us afloat. We did offer Club Twit so that people who hate advertising don't have to listen, and that's worked out quite well. But not nearly to the degree that we could drop advertising. And I want people who don't want to spend $7 a month to be able to hear our shows. I don't want a paywall. So, I think it's worked out for us. I worry about podcasting going forward in the long run. Hey, anyway, let's do an ad.
Can't wait.
Do the ad.
You know what? Get your pen out, Denise. You may already know about this, but if you don't, you're going to want to get it. It's called Blue Land. Do you know about Blue Land? So there's a thread in what Lisa and I do these days. We're really trying to cut down waste, single-use plastic. We're trying to be kind to the earth. Blue Land is so cool. So it's a couple of facts that will set this up. Did you know that an estimated 5 billion plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away every year? 5 billion. And by the way, every bottle, that you buy in the store, that's 90% water. So you're paying to ship water plus a little bit of active ingredient and all that plastic. Then you throw out the plastic. This is not a tenable situation. It's a lose-lose for you and for the planet. That's why we started using Blue Land. Blue Land's revolutionary refill cleaning system instead. When you set up Blue Land, I've done it now for myself, but also my daughter, which she got a new apartment. I guess got her a whole Blue Land thing. They'll send you the squirt bottles, the hand bottle, the hand soap bottles, the detergent bottle, all the stuff, little tin cans you could put your soap in for your dishwasher and your clothes washer. And then when you need more, They send you the powdered form of it. You add the water. You buy the bottle once, you refill it forever, no more plastic waste, and no more shipping water. And it's great stuff. You just fill these beautiful, the Instagrammable, yes, bottles with warm water. You pop in. So for the hand soap, we love the hand soap. In fact, I just got a whole set of, in December, a Christmas smell. There's a gingerbread. There's peppermint. I use this gingerbread hand soap. It smells like somebody's making gingerbread men. So you get it. You fill it with water to the line. You pop in the tablet. It dissolves, and now it's hand soap, foaming hand soap, or spray cleaner, or bathroom cleaner. Actually, you know what people love, and it's sold out a lot. I think there's some right now, so you should get it. Blue Land's toilet tablet cleaner. They sell out really fast. You put one in the toilet, it fizzes, it cleans it, you brush it, and you're done. It's incredible. The scent's amazing. Iris agave, perine lemon, lavender eucalyptus. I just want you to go to blueland.com/twit and check this out. I got my daughter the Clean Essentials kit to get her all started. There's a hand soap duo. We actually have in every bathroom now. We have Blue Land hand soap, different scents. It's wonderful. Plastic-free laundry and dishwasher tablets that are great. They work. That's the other thing. I think maybe you thought, oh, you've tried other, recyclable or earth-friendly products. They don't work. So these work great. These are just like the commercial products you'd buy, but without all the waste and without all the cost. Blue Land's stunning high-quality forever bottles start at just $10 when you buy a kit. They will be reused forever. The refill tablets, which is what you're going to continue to buy, $2. $2. So you save a huge amount of money. You save the planet by not using all this plastic waste. I use it. The dish soap is great. Blue Land, try it. You will love it. The planet will thank you. I had heard about this for years. We finally got it, and now I'm thrilled. It's way past time to make cleaning fun, beautiful, and plastic-free. Right now, you get 20% off your first order. Go to blueland.com/twit, BLUE, the color blue, blueland.com/twit. 20% off your first order of any Blue Land products. And it is a great housewarming gift. I gave Abby the whole set, and she loves it. Everything smells great. It's easy to clean. And you don't waste those bottles. Blueland.com/twit. Don't forget.
I can't come on this show anymore. It's like too expensive.
You will. No. You know what? You will thank me. This is not expensive. You will thank me because this is the future. I'm telling you, this is. Nice. No more guilt over. We used to go through plastic bottles of dish soap. Every week there'd be a new. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's great.
Nice.
Nvidia is going to abandon their $40 billion. Let's get the number right. ARM bid. I don't know if I'm sad or happy. ARM is currently owned by SoftBank. I feel like Nvidia might have been a good partner. On the other hand, there were a lot of people worried that Nvidia might, kind of take over ARM and make it hard for others to license ARM stuff. I doubt that would have happened, but I understand. Anyway, regulators are going to put the kibosh on that, both here and in Europe. SoftBank at this point says, we don't want it. We're getting rid of it. We're going to do an IPO. We still want to get out of it. Jason, any opinion?
I don't think that this changes much. I think that Nvidia still has a great future. They are going to be at the heart of what is this massive wave of artificial intelligence and machine learning that really over the next decade is going to revolutionize so many things. They're going to do just fine without this. ARM is also, they're going to be great. Like they have a great future as well, doing what they do, designing chips. Their chips are taking over the world. The wild thing is with what Intel's doing, becoming a chip maker for other people. It's very possible that Intel is going to probably be making ARM chips, right? Manufacturing ARM designs that are from ARM for other companies. And so it's a future that I could see them as an independent company still doing really well, and they have a great future. I think probably both companies. I think ARM has a better future potentially independently, because the future, they have so much runway to their chips are going to be in everything over the next decade, more things. And under ARM, it was going to be a little bit limited to, under Nvidia, ARM would have been a little bit limited, but I don't think it really changes much. Both these companies have a great future.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on Nvidia. Here's a good way to win a bar bet. Ask somebody which is a bigger chip maker, Nvidia or Intel. Everybody will go with Intel. Intel's worth $211 billion. Nvidia's worth $582 billion. Second only to TSMC, which is easily the biggest chip maker by market cap. Intel's not that big. It's smaller than Broadcom. Smaller than Samsung.
They missed the whole mobile wave.
They blew it. Yeah, look at all four of these. The bigger ones are all mobile chips.
Yeah, it was funny. I found some notes from an old Intel used to always have in San Francisco and Moscone West. They used to always have this event, Intel IDF, the Intel Developer Forum. And I found these old notes from 2007 where Intel had all these charts about the next great wave is in mobile. And we're changing the whole company to take advantage of where all of this is going. And we're going to be ready for it. And here's our roadmap. I mean, they knew it was coming. And they just couldn't execute against it. They just weren't, their mindset wasn't quite what it needed to be to take advantage of it. And boy, did it hurt.
Ben Thompson's done a great series on his Stratechery website and newsletter about Intel. And I think his take is pretty astute. All along, he said Intel's mistake was doubling down on the idea of an integrated company where they both designed and manufactured chips. Mm-hmm. And they got beat by the companies that did one or the other. Yep. That by Nvidia or ARM, which were design firms, or TSMC, which is a build firm. And both TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and Nvidia have gotten bigger than Intel by picking one. And Intel, because their fabs couldn't keep up with their designs, was held back and really didn't make competitive designs, and did, as you say, they missed out entirely on mobile. Their scale architecture was a flop. And so what is interesting is that Pat Gelsinger, the new CEO of Intel, who is a chip designer, he was instrumental in the 486. Harry, you remember that.
I do, yes. Pat basically designed that chip. He was the lead architect on that.
Yeah. And so now he's running the company, and he's done something I think that is a big gamble. But I think at this point, maybe that's what you need to do. He's decided to, in effect, do both, but not integrated. To build fabs, they build big fabs they're building a big one in Arizona, I think.
In Ohio.
Ohio.
They did a deal in Ohio.
That's right. And then also
$20 billion.
Yeah, $20 billion. But also then to double down on the design business. Harry, is this a good strategy, you think?
I think it seems like he's doing smart things with the cards that were dealt him when he signed up as CEO, along with being willing to make chips based on other architectures. They're also opening up the x86 architecture. So instead of a chip that based on Intel technology being what Intel thinks it should be, someone else could build on top of Intel's designs and tweak it, which is a lot closer to what ARM has always done, where other companies license the rights to ARM's cores and build on top of them. It sounds, this is assuming this Nvidia ARM deal doesn't happen. It's really good news for Intel. It sounds like in general, the tech industry would just as much be relieved if the deal doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think it's probably overall, Nvidia will be fine. I think Nvidia is such a smart company. There's a decent chance they would have not have screwed up ARM, but I think there has been value to the fact that ARM has always essentially been Switzerland, this third party that designs stuff that any technology company can license and use, and that would have fundamentally changed if Nvidia, which has always been an ARM customer up until now for its designs, had also owned ARM.
Yeah.
So I'd say on balance, I'm glad if it doesn't happen, although it might have been okay if it had.
Of course, at this point, the best-known ARM licensee is Apple with its M1 architecture. And I have to think Intel is somewhat stung by the performance and the power curve of Apple's M1s, especially since they keep saying, "Oh, we got chips that are faster."
They said they want them back. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they want to make them. They want to make chips in the fabs for Apple, but
Right now, Samsung and
TSMC is doing a 3-nanometer process. Good luck, Intel.
Yeah.
There's been this really healthy competition among all these companies that license ARM's designs, and you have Apple taking some of the same IP and running away from Qualcomm, which ultimately is a good thing for Qualcomm because they have to keep up.
Competition's good for us all. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And they're building things they might not have been able to otherwise. Sorry, go ahead, Denise.
Oh, no, you finish.
I'd say that all these companies are doing things they might not have been able to if they were 100% responsible for designing processors from scratch. So it's worked out really surprisingly well. ARM always had this vision back to when they were founded decades ago, and it really came into its own just in this century.
Go ahead, Denise.
I had a couple of just government-related observations on this story. Number one, it's just, another sign that antitrust is on regulators' minds. The FTC sued to stop this merger. China wants to stop it too. So, and I'm sure, if EU regulators had any say in the matter, they would want to stop it too. It just seems like there's a lot of...
Well, he did because ARM's a British company, and I know the Brits were not happy about ARM being bought by Nvidia. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just, antitrust is a bigger force in the world than it has been in the last several years.
Is that good, do you think?
Yes. Qualified yes. Like, I do feel like the flood of antitrust proposed legislation that came out earlier this year, some was good, some was bad, some was ugly. So I do think that we have to beware of antitrust overreach, but at the same time, there's a reason why it's much more on lawmakers' minds. So I think this is just, another symptom of that. The other government observation I would make is, I'm not worried about ARM or Nvidia if this doesn't go through, as both Harry and Jason have said. ARM is poised. I'm not quite sure how all this is shaking out, but it seems like as a chip manufacturer, they're going to get a shot in the arm from the government, if they haven't already, to bring some chip production to the U.S. and deal with these supply chain issues that we're having. So I think they're probably excited about that. And then on the personal front, one of my good family friends, the smartest AI guy I know, is the worldwide AI initiatives VP at Nvidia and the chair of their AI compute task force. And he's brilliant. His name's Keith Stryer. And, he's going to take them to good places.
When we watched, we streamed the NVIDIA's most recent keynote, I was just blown away. Because of the Sammable Salmon in our car segments, I'm very aware of what NVIDIA is doing in automotive. It's obvious they're killing it in gaming, in crypto mining. They're just firing on all cylinders. They are in the AI. They're huge. In fact, this new Meta supercomputer they just built is built with NVIDIA and NVIDIA chips. They are firing on all cylinders, and I think they're a really interesting company. And so I guess, for that reason, they don't need ARM. And ARM will, if it does an IPO, which I think is likely, ARM will then be a standalone company, as it should be. And I think that's probably the best for everybody all around. But this competition is really good. I love seeing a strong NVIDIA. You know what we haven't mentioned in all this is AMD, which has been making
also doing great.
Yeah, they've been making a run for it. Yeah.
Yep, they're doing great. And Intel as well. If we circle back to Intel, we all are going to be better from a renewed Intel.
Absolutely.
And Pat Gelsinger is a chip maker's, chip maker. He knows the industry. He's an excellent leader and CEO, includes lots of people, knows how to put the right people in the right positions. He'll do great at Intel, but the best thing that he has going for him, the one thing you can never control in business is timing. And he has timing on his side right now, because one thing that we've learned over the last 2 years, the last 24 months especially, is that having all of the chip making in East Asia and having all of those things shipped from there is not a good thing. And so the world is going to want to put that chip making in lots more places, in closer to where the product design, development, final manufacturing is. And that is going to benefit a lot of people, but it's definitely going to benefit Intel, especially if the CHIPS Act passed in the US, where then building chips in the US becomes as advantageous in terms of taxes and business investment as it is in Asia. Then you're not going to only see Intel building here. You're going to see, as TSMC is already, they're planning a plant here. Samsung is planning a plant in Texas. You're going to see this movement to decentralize the making of these chips. Intel has they have a level playing field potentially, and some opportunities to really go into this in a way where they can design where they're behind on, as we know from the nanometer, side of things perspective, but also in terms of chip making, they can start building, they know how to build and manufacture things. And so that's going to be an opportunity for them to really,
I worry a little bit because of course, everybody talks when they talk about chip shortage about Intel, AMD, Nvidia. The real chip shortage is not those chips. It's all these little legacy cheapo chips that are almost commodities. But if you can't, who was it? General Motors had to sell a bunch of cars without seat warmers because the chip that controls the seat warmers is unavailable. If you can't sell cars because that's missing, that's just as big a deal. And I doubt very much people are investing $30 billion to build the chips for seat warmers. I don't know who's doing that, but let's bring that home too. That could be the $10 million fab. Yeah. Let's bring that home too.
It's true, but AI and machine learning, AI, the cost of AI is decreasing rapidly right now. And so because of that, over the next decade, the need for these more powerful chips is going to skyrocket, right? To power AI, like this Metacomputer and Nvidia and Intel.
That responds to my concern, which is we're building all these fabs. Are we going to have a glut in 3 years when they all come online and suddenly everybody's making chips? But you think demand will increase to match the increase in productivity?
Yes, because of the how rapidly the developments in AI and machine learning.
Well, that's what's happened. That's one of the reasons there's a shortage. Is demand has increased remarkably. Yeah.
And we're just at the start of the age where almost everything is a computer, which means almost everything will have chips in it, and it seems pretty likely that will continue to ramp up at least as quickly as these new fabs come online.
Not always a good thing.
No, not at all.
Lisa bought a Mini Cooper, electric Mini Cooper, about a month ago. 854 miles in, it just stopped working, and I mean, literally, it just said no. Everything's broken. It said brakes don't work, lights don't work, drivetrain malfunction, like a Christmas tree. And we had it towed down to where we bought it in Marin. They said, "Oh, we don't know what they had." Then they had it towed to BMW for some. I guess BMW makes the drivetrain in San Francisco. They finally looked at it. They said, "Well, it's going to take us at least 3 weeks to get the board replaced." This car is a car. It's got 4 wheels. It's got all the stuff it needs, except that the chip in it is malfunctioned and is undrivable. So Lisa, needless to say, is not too happy.
I think it's fascinating. Apple decided to go into the chip business and seems to be.
It's been a very good move, has it
liking
not?
being there.
It's been a very good move. They're making great stuff. In fact, one of the stories from this week is how PC sales have gone through the roof, and the biggest growth area was Mac. It's still only 8% of the market, but still big growth for Apple computers. And I have to think some of that is people going, oh, I like these new chips. So smart.
They hired Joni Mitchell to run
great.
their chip making business, and that was an incredible move.
Yeah.
And obviously a team. He doesn't make all the chips himself. But he also knew the right people to hire, and they have just taken off like a rocket since they did that and put him in charge.
Although they did just lose one of the guys who designed the M1 chip went back to Intel. They'd hired him away from Intel. Jeff Wilcox is going back to Intel to design systems on a chip. So it's quite a revolving door in that business, I think. Let's take a little break. This was the week Apple had its quarterly results. Microsoft, too. We could talk a little bit about. I don't think financial results have that much to do with technology as they do, at least not as much as they do with the market, but still, you get some insights into how these companies are doing and what they're doing from their financial reports. Our show today brought to you by Audible. And here's another one where it's an easy recommend. I have literally been an Audible member 22 years. It all started for me when I was commuting to San Francisco. I had a 2 to 4 hour commute every day. I was going crazy, discovered audiobooks from Audible, and my life was changed. I've listened to I have more than 500 audiobooks I've listened to on Audible. I just love them. Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere. You'll discover exclusive Audible originals from big-name celebrities. Steve Martin reading Born Standing Up was just awesome. Keith Richards reading his biography. Actually, they have Johnny Depp reading it for the first 3 quarters as if he's Keith Richards. And then 3 quarters of the way through the biography, he suddenly says, and now, ladies and gentlemen, Keith Richards. Keith reads the last quarter of it, which I loved. You can listen to Audible while you're traveling, commuting like me, while you're working out, washing the dishes, walking the dog. By the way, Audible also includes thousands of podcasts, some of the most popular favorites, exclusive new series. And as a member at Audible, you get full access to a growing selection of included audiobooks. Just part of your subscription, you can download or stream all you want. I was watching that new HBO show, The Gilded Age, and it's okay, but it made me crave some Edith Wharton. I wanted the real deal, the author of The Age of Innocence. So I thought, I'm going to get The House of Mirth. And I looked, and Audible had, I am not kidding, a dozen different versions of The House of Mirth, but it turned out the best one I got for free is because it's an Audible Plus title. I went, yeah, I'm glad I checked. So that is a really nice thing. I cannot wait to listen to The House of Mirth. They've got a great actress reading that. You'll get a full selection of audiobooks as a member. Audible gives members a chance to listen to and discover new favorites and explore different formats. And that's one of the things that makes your membership so much more valuable. For instance, if you are, like me, a fan of music, the Words Plus Music series is fantastic. How albums were made, what happened, the story behind the album, or maybe a podcast you never heard of or considered before. They even have theatrical performances. I love those. Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, part 2 just came out, fully dramatized. It's the best radio theater you've ever heard. It's incredible. And as an Audible member, you can choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog. That's how I got 500 in my library. And they're in your library forever, by the way. I often go back and listen. When the movie Dune came out, I said, I want to listen to Dune again. It was great. That one's dramatized, as a matter of fact. Bestsellers, new releases, classics. Audible loves science fiction. I know we all love science fiction. Audible's a great place for sci-fi because so much of the early sci-fi, things like Foundation and Dune, weren't recorded originally. Audible actually set up studios to create the Audible Frontiers series, which is finally audiobook versions of some of the most iconic science fiction novels. So that's really a great reason to join Audible. All available to download or stream. You can listen anywhere, anytime, on any device. And you know what? You never lose your spot. Always pick up right where you left off. So I'll get home. I'll sit down in my office. I'll say, hey, Echo, read to me. It'll pick up right where I left off in the car. I love it. 2022 is all about celebrating our newfound self-awareness and making positive change. right? Audible helps make space for what matters to you. It's a destination for your wellness, whether you're looking to soul search, be inspired, work towards new goals, unwind, or simply be entertained. We've had some time to find out what truly makes us happy, and Audible lets us have more of it. Recently, we've been listening to an audiobook called Being Mortal, which is kind of heavy, but it's about end of life and how we think about it. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful listen. You're always going to find the best of what you love or something new to discover. New members, try Audible, 30 days free. Download the Audible app and get started with a free trial, audible.com/twit. You can also text them if you want to put it on your phone. Just text TWIT to 500-500. Please do text TWIT to 500-500 so they know I saw it here. Or go to AUDIBLE, audible.com/twit. Text TWIT to 500-500 to start your free trial today. There's a good example of an advertiser that's been with us for, I think, more than a decade.
I was going to say, Leo, weren't they one of your first
First,
advertisers?
yeah.
Yeah. Because I heard about it on Twit, on Audible.
You can blame me for that as well. Sure, go ahead.
I know, thanks. It cost me thousands of dollars now. But it's I want to say 2004, 2005, I heard it on Twit, and I remember getting it when I first got it. I had to like download it to my computer and then sync it to my iPod.
That's right.
And then listen to it with my iPod. But was very glad that I did, and have been a member, for now, almost 20 years because of Twit, which is pretty
My only problem is I have so many audiobooks. I don't have as much time as I used to because I don't have that 4-hour commute anymore. I wish I could listen more often. But what I've discovered is there's the House of Mirth. I'm now starting the Expanse series. They've got all of them. Really nice production of that. Lots of great stuff. One of the things I've done is I've started listening when I'm playing video games because I always feel guilty that I'm playing a game and not doing anything important. And so I figure, well, at least I'm reading and playing a video game. So that's how I feel better about myself. Last one Lisa and I listened to together was Hawaii. Boy, is that a long novel. I think that was, 40 hours?
It was Mishner. Yeah,
Mishner.
those
51
no
hours and 56 minutes. Make it 52 hours. Yeah, that's a lot of Hawaii. Anyway, Audible, amazing. We love them. We love you, Audible. Thank you for being with us all these years. Audible.com/twit, or go text TWIT to 500-500. It's important, by the way, talking about this podcast thing. If you use those codes or you use that address, please, it's really important because that's how Audible measures their effectiveness. And we want them to know that you all listen and subscribe because of us. Thank you. It's almost a cliche. Apple had the best quarter it's ever had again. Overall revenue up 11%. Earnings per share up 25% year over year. iPhone revenue up 9% year over year. It's kind of amazing. You could make more. You could sell more iPhones, but I guess they found somebody who hasn't bought one yet. Big victory on services. You may remember when Apple said, we're going to be a services company. We're not going to give you numbers of sales anymore. We're going to talk about revenue per user, and the best way to up revenue per user is to sell them stuff, services after the sale. $19.52 billion. That's 24% up year over year. Mac revenue up 25%. iPad revenue up 14%. Gross margin. This is the number that always makes me go, oh my God, 43.8%. That's a lot of margin.
What does that mean exactly?
Profit margin.
Profit.
That's their profit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Most of these companies they're trying to get by with like 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
Most of these.
Oh my God.
But not only does the revenue like through the roof, $123 billion, but you get to keep 43% of that.
That's insane.
It's insane.
And nobody knows how to sandbag expectations like Apple, and then that's why you said, Leo, it's like, again, they exceed expectations. Somehow they always find a way to hold expectations in line. That said, no one, I remember a bunch of the analysts saying who they always take this into account, right? They're like, there's the Apple number and then there's
We've
the
been
number
sandbagged.
Wall Street.
Yeah, we know they're going to do better than what they told us. Okay, fine.
But nobody expected it to go. I think it was just last year that they started breaking 100 billion, and now 123. Everybody was just like, where did this come from?
That's for 3 months. That's more than $40 billion a month.
And this was despite the supply chain issues and the fact that a lot of the hardware you couldn't really get, and there was long lead times to get things like an iPhone. Think how well they might have done if they could have fulfilled every iPhone order immediately.
So forgive me, because I don't want to be the cheese in your gruel or the... I don't know what the phrase is.
Can we make that the show title right now?
There you go.
But
winner.
They aren't exactly. Are they that much better than everybody else? The greatest company of all, $3 trillion. Are they that much better, or are they that much better at marketing? I guess.
Actually, you touched on it in the beginning, I think, Leo. So if you look at the US and China, their two biggest and most important markets, and the iPhone being their most important phone. In China, for the first time in 6 years, they shot to number one again, the number one phone, which nobody expected them to retake.
Remember
Android.
that Huawei suddenly shot to the top last year or the year before, when we blocked them, when we banned them, when we forbid U.S. companies for dealing with Huawei out of, it was assumed patriotism. The Chinese people said, we're buying Huawei. That didn't last that long.
It didn't. And then in the US, they're up to, I want to say it's 47 or 49% of the US. They are growing smartphone margin in the US. They're growing it in China. They're two biggest markets. So why is that? Because just to your point, are they making a device that's that much better? I think we all think the answer is no. The devices are good. They're excellent. But Samsung's excellent. OnePlus is excellent. A lot of these are making really good devices. What appears to be the factor that's driving them forward is this integration both with services and the other devices. As people are buying more Apple devices, you mentioned the Mac is up, the iPad was the one that got hit by the supply chain, and Tim Cook called it out. But iPads have had a big resurgence during the pandemic. More people at home and people on different screens not wanting to watch the same things or do all kinds of other things. And then the services that people have really responded, especially to Apple One and the bundle, not just their bundle, but a lot of other bundles too. So services and the other devices seem to be what's carrying Apple and giving them a leg up, because it's not just the hardware itself.
It's like the whole ecosystem.
Well, and it's the ecosystem in a kind of under duress. So, for instance, Apple just released a beta of Mac OS 11 Monterey that features this new universal control. And, of course, what does universal control require? That you own a lot of Apple stuff. You can now move your mouse and your keyboard from Mac to an iPad and back and forth. So it's got a multi-screen experience. It's not even a new idea. There have been products that do this for a long time. But Apple now has built it into the operating system. Or if you have an iPhone and you don't want to use Face ID because you're wearing a mask, well, it so happens if you have an Apple Watch, it'll unlock your iPhone. They're very good at the ecosystem play.
They're very good too, and this goes back to Steve Jobs, and we've all been around a long time and remember, the early days and how important it was to his company to deliver the killer, absolutely insanely great user experience. And I feel like the company has really kept that as a value because when I'll just use my own personal experience. I had an iMac that lasted me 12 years that I just replaced.
It's quality. It's quality.
Yeah. It lasted 12 years. My new one, I couldn't be more thrilled with it. It is just a beautiful,
and
fast,
and Harry,
screaming, wonderful.
You just reviewed the Dell XPS, and I think they're very nice, but they don't have that same feel of quality. You know what I'm saying?
The XPS, I have to say, is pretty darn nice.
It's very nice.
Indeed. But Dell is a computer company. They don't make phones. They have way less control over the software. You're not going to fill your entire life with all kinds of Dell products. They're dependent on Microsoft for their operating system.
And there is just something about, and by the way, part of the reason Dell's XPS is so nice is because they're copying Apple in a number of ways. There's something about a MacBook. You're exactly right, Denise. Yeah. It feels like a quality product.
And on the services end, they don't drop the ball at all. In fact, they deliver in ways other companies need to look at and take notes.
They don't Google it?
No. First of all, to me, of course, and I think to a lot of people, the fact that they've taken a good stand on privacy and data is important, and it matters to people even in the background as they're using their devices.
No, I think it is important. I agree. Yeah.
Secondly, though, just as far as like your day-to-day use of the device, 3 weeks after I bought my new iMac, someone knocked it over. They're kind of, they're not super solid, right?
No, they're basically iPads on a stick, but go ahead.
Right,
yeah.
they're iPads on a stick. So someone knocked over my 3-week-old iPad on a stick and broke the screen just like you would break the screen on your phone.
Oh.
But it works to replace it just like it would work to replace the screen on your phone. I have Apple Care. It costs $99, and I have a new screen, and I'm back in business. So, and it took a week.
Yeah.
So that was just, another just incredible experience. And the other really great way I think they responded under fire was during the pandemic when they had to shut down all their stores. They managed to just up their phone service and ability to respond by phone and mail in a way that was just amazing. Need to buy a new phone? Great. Don't go into the store, call them up. We'll deliver it right to you. Problem with your existing phone? No worries. We'll ship you a box, ship it back to us. We'll fix it or replace it. You're good to go. Lots of companies need to be taking notes about this.
You're sounding like a sheeple, I have to say.
I've been there, I've been there with other companies too, and been just, you roll your eyes and you go, okay, it's just poor customer service. We just have to get used to that. Yeah. And I've never had that with Apple.
Yeah.
And you're saying, things like Apple is doing universal control and Microsoft and Google are working together to integrate Windows with Android, which is actually pretty cool if you have a Windows laptop and an Android phone, but they're never going to be able to make anything as seamless as what Apple can do because they are two separate operating systems controlled by different companies.
Yeah. Apple
it's like
really...
the universal
Go ahead.
Copy and paste feature. I was just gonna say like that. It really blows my mind how you can just copy something on your computer or your iPad and send it to your phone.
When I want to embed an attachment on my Mac in email, it says you want to take a picture with your phone. We'll just put it in, and it's like that's hard for Dell to do. That's hard for anybody else to do.
Yeah.
Dell put a touch bar on that XPS, though, right?
They did.
Kind of, sort of. I mean, the buttons don't jump around. They're fixed in one place.
It's like Dell is 2 years behind Apple. Apple has finally said, oh, God, let's get rid of that touch bar. And Dell hasn't got the memo yet.
Well, in all fairness, I think it is really radically different.
Oh, good. Okay.
What Apple did. I mean, it's way less ambitious. Whether it's better or not, I'm not sure. They also, when I talked to them, they talked about the fact that doing that also helped them make the system cooler, the internals cooler, removing that row of buttons.
That's interesting.
They've also done some things that Apple, for better or worse, they're doing things that Apple hasn't done, like the trackpad on the new XPS. There's no border around it at all.
Yeah.
It's just the middle section of the wrist area. So it is quite different. And also Dell kind of came up with the idea several years ago with the XPS of shrinking the borders of the screen down as much as possible. And Apple only got around to doing that last year. And that might be a case where Dell actually influenced Apple rather than the other way around.
Yeah, Dell's taken a while to get rid of the bezel. Apple, rather, has taken a while to get rid of the bezel, yeah.
And they added a notch along the way.
Yeah. The notch, you don't notice it, but right, Denise, you don't. Oh, do you have a laptop? I don't know if you do. You have you have an iPad. On
I have an
stick.
older
You don't have the
MacBook
notch.
Air. No, I don't think I have a notch.
I do wonder if we shouldn't, and I think Denise mentioned this, of like, we shouldn't underestimate the privacy and security part either, because it is getting worse and more challenging and more difficult, especially on privacy. And Apple, this was somewhat, again, this is timing and maybe a little bit of luck, that Apple wanted to get into advertising. They wanted to do that, and they tried it, and they realized pretty quickly, we're just terrible at this. This is not a strength, and we don't want to invest to do it. So instead, let's go in the opposite direction and say, we're going to be the company that's not going to take your data and use it and try to advertise against you. We're going to be the ones that say, we're going to push it back against all of that. And we're going to make that a feature of our product, and turn a weakness into a strength.
How much of that's genuine? How much of it's marketing?
Well, they do have a big deal with Google, which Apple benefits hugely from, and lets Google get at Apple users and monetize what they're doing online.
They pay Google, what is it, 11
For sure.
billion? No, Google pays them 11 billion or something.
That's right.
To be the default search engine on Safari.
But they don't, but they also, it's Safari shutting and Apple shutting down a lot of this data stuff that's moved this stuff forward more quickly.
Right.
Because, once it breaks on Apple devices, then, a bunch of companies, lots of companies, and with how more and more of the web is mobile, they knew that the gig was up, and that was, critical. And then with the things like they're doing with, video doorbells and other video cameras, where the stuff is not sent to the cloud, but is used in these secure enclave-like kind of ways, is also another thing that is an example of them. They wouldn't do this if they weren't focused on this idea that we're going to turn security and privacy into a feature. Now,
Right.
there's certainly some marketing in it, as you're pointing out, Leo. I don't think they're not hiring a lot of PhDs in cryptography to try to make sure that all of their stuff is perfect. But they aren't doing the opposite of like signing deals with Facebook and everybody else and trying to sell their users' data.
It's interesting, and Harry, I think you've written a little bit about this, that Google is trying to get back into Android tablets after essentially ceding the tablet market to Samsung and to some degree to Apple. Google has, for some reason, decided that they want to do tablets again.
J.R. Raphael, he writes for Fast Company, but he also writes for Computer World, and he had a great story on the long and sad history of Android tablets, which involves essentially Google not investing enough to make it into a true competitor to the iPad, and therefore they're never been terribly satisfying. And even when they acquired an interesting company called Bump Top, they didn't do much with it. And it does feel a little bit like Samsung in the last few years has done way more of the heavy lifting than Google has to try to make decent Android tablets. But even though Samsung actually has done some of the software layers on their own tablets, there's a limit to what they can do since it's not their operating system.
But
Google does. But Google, JR did break the news that Google has hired somebody to be in charge of Android tablets, and maybe that's a hopeful sign.
Yeah, he found a job listing and everything. Google made one of my favorite tablets ever, which was that 7-inch. I can't remember the name of it.
The Nexus.
Nexus, yeah, that was incredible.
Oh, that's right.
Loved that, and then just let it go. Good.
Remember the Motorola Zoom with an X?
Oh, God. BlackBerry. Remember BlackBerry had a
BlackBerry tablet
Playbook.
Yeah. The Playbook. Yeah. There were all those, after the iPad came out, there were a lot of incredibly aggressively marketed Android tablets.
The HP Touchpad, which was WebOS.
Yes.
The late lamented.
Yeah. I think it was Harry who pointed out that we are in the tablet having a resurgence kind of period, with so much more being done via video and as opposed to in person, including, if it's school or work or We had to take a COVID test that was video monitored, and you're not going to do that on your phone.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a great Zoom device. Zoom, the video conferencing Zoom. As a matter of fact, the best Zoom device in our household is a 13-inch 2020 iPad Pro, because it has like 5 microphones and it has this great noise cancellation and it has really loud sound. So you can be in a room and put that almost anywhere and have a really good Zoom call.
Is it too late for Google to get back into the tablet marketplace, having let it go for so long?
I mean, it seems like they spent the last few years way more interested in Chromebooks, and they've made Chromebooks that are essentially convertible tablets in which run Android apps, and that seems like it's where their heart is. But there are all these developers out there who have never invested huge amount of attention in developing great Android tablet apps because there weren't great Android tablets for the most part to run them. And so it's not just Google, they would have to do a lot of catch up. The hardware manufacturers would have to do it too, and developers would have to be interested in a way that they have logically enough not been interested for a long time.
Google can be an extremely frustrating company. I really want them to do well, and they seem to be very short attention span. Because there should be competition for the iPad. Apple shouldn't dominate that space.
I mean, Samsung's making some nice tablets.
You know what the problem?
Sure.
They make some really nice ones.
They are, and that's what JR's point is. That Samsung's done all the heavy lifting so far, but you can't fully blame Google because it's also the lack of tablet apps. When Google put out tablets, the app makers didn't respond by making apps. Maybe it was too hard to do with Android, I don't know, but didn't respond by making apps that adapted well to all that screen real estate. So
I mean, it's kind of chicken and the egg.
Yeah, you got to make something that they want to develop for. Let's take a little break. I do want to talk about the FBI. Apparently, they were very interested in buying NSO Group's Pegasus a couple of years back. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. A lot of investment apps make it easy to start trading, but just because it's easy to do so doesn't mean you know what you're doing. I think people have learned maybe it's not that, it shouldn't be that easy. I think it's really, look, I am not going to knock you. My kids love the idea of buying cryptocurrency or buying a hot stock, because that's what, it's a product they love. That's fine. But honestly, and I tell them this over and over again, if you want to build wealth, you need a slower strategy designed for growth. Wealthfront makes it easy to invest, easy to grow your savings. You can have a little bit for fun, but Wealthfront's about getting ready for retirement, getting ready for college, for your kids, buying that first house, having that first baby. It's about saving money the smart way. And I have to say, you still have plenty of fun with Wealthfront. You can start investing in no time with Wealthfront's classic portfolio. That's a no-brainer. Or you can still make it your own with things you care about. Socially responsible funds. Love that idea. Technology funds. You can even do crypto. They have crypto trusts. There's literally hundreds of investments now on Wealthfront. But Wealthfront always looks out for you. It was designed by financial experts to help turn your good ideas into great investments without the hassle of doing it all yourself. Do you know about rebalancing? Experts say you should rebalance your portfolio regularly. Do you do it? Wealthfront does it for you automatically. Wealthfront's trusted with $28 billion in assets. 500,000 people use Wealthfront to build their wealth. It's easy to get started. Set up your first account with as little as $500. Grow your wealth the easy way. Let Wealthfront do the work for you. The best part is their product is so simple, yet so powerful. The app on the App Store has 4.9 out of 5 stars. People love it. To start building your wealth, to get your first $5,000 managed free for life, go to wealthfront.com/twit. WEALTHFRONT. Wealthfront.com/twit. Get started today, okay? And the first $5,000 managed free for life. That's a really good deal. Wealthfront.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Great week this week. We had a lot of fun. Well, in fact, I think we have a little mini movie you can watch to share the excitement.
But I feel like I am the biggest walking contradiction on this planet.
Really?
There's so many times I hear in a day how someone just assumes that I'm just such a nice guy. But I feel like, man, let me show you what my T-shirt says today.
What does it say?
It says no.
Previously on Twit. Tech News Weekly.
Google killed off FLoC this week. They replaced it with something called Topics. Topics is an API that will essentially look at your browsing behavior, and it will filter that into topics that you're interested in.
All about Android.
It is the Nexigo Air T2 wireless earbuds. And what struck me about these was that this
awesome.
little case is like so thin and so tiny. I don't know how they did it. The little like sub pocket inside your jeans pocket.
Yeah.
It fits
the
in
pocket
there.
within your pocket. That's awesome.
Yeah, it fits in the pocket within the pocket, which
It
is
passes
awesome.
Ron's pocket test, which he used to run with tablets.
Windows Weekly.
How do you explain this to mainstream users who hear, oh, Android apps on Windows? So I can just get any Android app on Windows, right? But that's not how it's going to work.
As Dwindle says,
So-
though, the good news is you'll be able to get Candy Crush finally on Windows.
Twit.
Thank goodness, right?
It's about time. If you love tech, you will
Important
love
things.
Twit all week long. Pardon me? We
The
were ta-
important things.
Yes.
Candy Crush.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think you could get Candy Crush on Windows for quite a while. In fact, I think you get it whether you want it or not. That's the joke of it all. Yeah, we talked about that last week, the big acquisition of Activision. Microsoft's biggest acquisition to date. New York Times, Sunday Times today, article about the FBI and Pegasus. So it turns out, we've been talking a lot about NSO Group's Pegasus, which was zero-click software that allowed a lot of authoritarian regimes to hack activists and journalists. Friends of Jamal Khashoggi hacked by the Saudi Arabians before he was murdered. Well, first time ever we've heard this story. The FBI secretly bought Israeli spyware and explored hacking U.S. phones with Pegasus. This was back in 2017. Interestingly, it was right after they first got it that we started to see all the news stories about Khashoggi and Pegasus being used for less positive things against dissidents in the United Arab Emirates and against women's rights activists in Saudi Arabia. CIA bought Pegasus. We've known this to help in Djibouti, an American ally. They were fighting terrorism. In the UAE, Pegasus was used to hack the phone of a critic of the government. The FBI decided maybe we got to back off a little bit on this, and fortunately decided not to buy it. But it's been interesting because, remember, the president decided to sanction the NSO group just a few months ago. So now we know that the FBI bought and tested NSO software for years. Their plans were to use it for domestic surveillance. They bought a bunch of burner phones. By the way, the Pegasus equipment is still in a New Jersey building used by the FBI. So, I don't know.
That conversation we were having about Apple taking a privacy stand, this takes that right off the table.
Yeah.
From the article, it's an independent solution that requires no cooperation from AT&T, Verizon, Apple, or Google.
Yep.
The system, it says, this is from a brochure that was presented to the FBI, will turn your target smartphone into an intelligence goldmine.
It turns on, you can use it to, it's zero click, that's what you're talking about, which means you don't have, the victim doesn't have to do anything. You just send them a text and boom, you're in. And among other things, you can turn on the microphone, the camera, you can see all the emails, you can see all the text messages, you can see everything that's going on. It turns the phone into this most amazing spy device. NSO Group says that actually they have a switch in Pegasus that means it can't be used on U.S. phone numbers. But the company also gave the agency a demonstration of Phantom, another product which can hack American phones.
And did for that demonstration.
Yep. I guess there's nothing really to say about that. It's good that the Times got that story and something to pay attention to.
It's a great piece. There's a lot of detail on the way that Israel leveraged their relationship with NSO to essentially get favors from other companies who wanted access to NSO's technology. It was a real point of political leverage for a long time.
But I think anybody listening, anybody who's been following the coverage of Pegasus and so forth, probably assumes that, well, we're doing it too. We may not know about it, but we're doing it too. And this just proves, yeah, as a matter of fact, we have been all this time.
And they partnered with Mexico. So.
Yeah, that's how they got El Chapo.
Yeah.
It was on El Chapo's phone. Let's see. I mentioned Meta's building an AI supercomputer that will be the world's fastest by the end of 2022. What could possibly go wrong? Why shouldn't Mark Zuckerberg have the world's fastest AI? Made out of Nvidia hardware.
Not a fan of Facebook, and I've long ago kind of stopped using the platform by and large.
Yep. Except for Instagram, because I need to know where to get my underwear. But other than that,
I just stopped using Instagram for the reason you mentioned. I kept buying stuff, and by the way, unlike the Twit stuff, like half of the stuff I got on Instagram, I was disappointed with. That's actually one of the reasons I stopped. One, buying stuff.
Okay, can I tell you one thing not to buy on Instagram?
Yeah.
I can't believe I bought this.
Underwear? No.
Okay. The underwear's been fine.
Okay.
Although when I got it, it said, do not wash in the washing machine, which made me think that's not really useful when it comes to underwear. So I have been anyway, and it hasn't fallen apart. So I don't know how people with shoulders sleep, because unless you sleep on your back, which I cannot do, the shoulder seems to impinge on your sleeping, and it's not comfortable. So there's an ad, which I don't know if you've seen it. I saw it for a long time. They must know I got a problem. For this pillow that you put your arm in, and then it's called Medcline, and it holds you up and your arms in, and then your shoulder will be comfortable. Okay. I don't know why I bought this thing. It must have been in the middle of the night.
Does it work?
Well, I guess, yeah. If you don't mind sleeping on a wedge.
Yeah, that doesn't.
With your arm in a hole.
Doesn't sound good.
Anyway,
doesn't sound good.
The problem is now and it comes with this giant worm of a body pillow. And it was expensive. I don't know what I was thinking. I swear to God, it was the middle of the night. That's the problem with Instagram. It's 4 a.m. You're scrolling, doom scrolling, and then you buy whatever it is because you're completely at their mercy. Anyway, if anybody wants this thing, it's occupying a lot of space in my bedroom.
And was that an example of a targeted ad? Like, did they know you were somebody with shoulders, or
it must have been
sleep issues?
The weird thing is now I will still see it forever. I mean, like, it's never going to leave my feed now.
Yeah.
Even though I bought it.
So my disclaimer was I don't use Facebook or Instagram anymore. I essentially semi-retired from social media in 2018.
Yes. Smart man.
But there's a whole nother thread to there, which was one of the smartest things I did. But the but is that one of the things that gets underestimated about Facebook is their technical prowess. They, from a technical standpoint, are genius. And the interesting thing is, like, they figured out a lot. They essentially were the ones that figured out how to scale the database to web scale.
It blows me away. They've got 3.5 billion users, and it's like fast. It's amazing.
Yeah. So they will, anything where it's a technical problem to solve, they will win. I mean, I pretty much, they just are, they are incredible at that.
Well, they hire really good people. The best network engineers, including our own Colleen Kelly, work for them. When I was in Mexico, I met a guy who works in the ready for production department where they get stuff ready to put into production. So they're testing it and all that stuff. And these are really smart people doing amazing things. Look at this Meta data center research supercluster phase 1. If you're worried about Skynet, forget Google. This is Skynet. 175 petabytes of bulk storage, 46 petabytes of cache storage, 10 petabytes NFS storage. It's got 6,080 Nvidia A100 GPUs, 6,000 of them, a 200 gigabit HDR InfiniBand network per GPU. Every GPU has 200 gigabits of network. This thing's insane. What are you going to use it for?
This kind of technology, metaverse. At this kind of technology, this is the stuff that they are like the best in the world at. No, at scale, they're incredible. I do have my doubts that they could win at metaverse, to be honest. But the brand change was certainly smart on their part, but
it got us all talking about the metaverse. It was very successful in that regard, wasn't it?
It was, but they also for people under 30, they've lost that demographic.
They know it too, right?
Their brand, their brand is
But you say that, but Instagram is very popular in that crowd, right?
It is.
I mean,
I think it'll dwindle. I'm more worried. I think that they realize that social media may not be their future, but developing something that comes up with artificial general intelligence, first time ever.
That's what they're building.
Yeah,
I'm convinced that's what they want to build. They say, "Oh, this will help us train AI systems for voice recognition." Yeah, that's it. You don't need 16,000 GPUs for voice recognition.
Yeah.
And I do worry about them.
No.
Agreed. I do worry about them because I think they're probably the most amoral company in the tech industry.
Exactly.
Like they really only care about winning, from the top down. And they've shown that through their actions over and over again. Not that there is an ethics problem in Silicon Valley in general, but they are the ones that care the least. They will do whatever it takes to win and then pay the fines that they have to the government afterwards when they get sued, because of done.
We help RSC, that's what they're calling this thing, will help us build entirely new AI systems that can, for example, power real-time voice translations to large groups of people, each speaking a different language, so they can seamlessly collaborate on a research project or play an AR game together. I have to think it's a little bit more than that we're talking about here. A little bit more than that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you're Mark, you've got basically infinite resources. You've got this problem of your customer base aging out. You need the next big thing. Skynet. Why not?
Someone's going to do it, so.
Why not? Exactly. I am absolutely convinced that that's what this is all about.
It's probably time to have James Barrett back on the network.
Yeah. They want to build, you said it, a general AI. Mm-hmm. And I'm terrified. If it's got Mark's brain in it, I'm really scared.
And up until now, the companies that might be able to lay claim to having the world's most powerful supercomputer have been companies like IBM, which I don't think people spend all that much time worrying about these days. Facebook having it is just a different situation.
Absolutely. Steam Deck's coming out February 25th. I am expecting an article from you, Harry. We'll see if you can get one. Good luck. I'm signed up, but I don't. This is Valve's portable Linux-based gaming system. There was a lot of interest when they announced it a year ago, and it's coming out in less than a month. Do you care about a robot bartender that will serve up cocktails at the Winter Olympics?
I like that a lot better than Meta's supercomputer.
Yeah. They had this on the cruise ship we went on a few years ago. They're doing this because of COVID. They don't want real bartenders. So if you're going to get drunk at the Winter Olympics, this robot will be happy to serve you. A minute and a half for a drink is way too long. Way too long. I think we can say we've covered the waterfront. Is there anything I missed? The big stories that you guys, you are all covering this all the time. Anything I missed? I think we've done it all here.
One big one that I thought was great last week was ARK Invest did their research, released their research on Big Ideas 2022. So the 14 transformative technologies to watch this year. That's the version from Vala Afshar on ZDNet writing about it. But they released all of their research for free. Unlike some of the agencies out there, they essentially kind of open source their research, which is pretty cool. But this is a great read on where a lot of these things are, from Web3 to autonomous vehicles to AI to genomics and blockchain. They do some really different kind of research on these things and have a very great perspective on a lot of it. And so I think that for this audience, there's a lot of people that will appreciate.
Bottom line it for us. What did they? What's coming? What should we get ready for? Besides
the
Skynet.
Biggest, the biggest is AI. So today, AI is a $10 trillion industry, $10 trillion industry.
Wow.
In 2030, they see it as $108 trillion. So that's the biggest one. Blockchain today is 1.4 trillion. In 2030, it's 50 trillion. So a lot of these you'd expect. Battery technology, is 1.5 trillion. They see that as 32 trillion. Those are the
talk about fusion at all?
About
nuclear,
like the fusion reactor
fusion
on the flux capacitor and
No, I'm just Mr. Fusion. Yeah, that's the one. No, I'm talking about fusion energy, because I feel like if there's anything that's going to save society, it's coming up with cold fusion. And I know a lot of investors are throwing money into this, and I wonder, is it scientifically even feasible, or is this money thrown away?
This did not come up in here, but you're right though that energy for this century, energy is the big one, right?
Yeah.
Because more and more of what we do is going to require energy. We know the fossil fuel story. So energy is going to be a huge story for, that's more of like a 2050 between now and 2050 story than 2030. But no, I think you're on the right
None of this
track.
is going to matter if we don't solve the climate crisis, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You can have genome editing and blockchain, but if the ocean level has risen 10 feet, it's not going to make that much difference. Yeah, it's interesting, this graph of the 14 transformative technologies. Autonomous mobility, yes. Reusable rockets, yes. Blockchain, IoT, AI, robotics. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting world.
These folks have some ETF funds as well that have gotten crushed in the recent Wall Street scare on high growth stocks. But, put all that aside, that's not related to this research so much, right? This research is really just basic research on where the technology industry is going. And they do some of the most compelling stuff, and they do it out in the public, and they release it for everybody for free to look at. And so there's a lot in there that's worth putting some time into.
Vala Afshar's article on ZDNet, very, very interesting. Yeah.
And I forgot when we started the show, I promised the chat room we would cover the net neutrality story, and I can do that quickly.
Oh, yes. No, that's absolutely the case.
Okay.
So this is big. This is, I think, a big deal. The California courts. Well, go ahead. You tell us the story.
So I would just recommend for anybody who wants to sort of catch up and see how we got here, there's a really good Wikipedia page called Net Neutrality in the United States that takes you through the whole weird back and forth history of net neutrality and Title I and Title II. And I'm not going to try and go through that. I'll just refer you to that page. But the latest salvo over the table tennis net in this ongoing struggle is, here, I'll tee it up by saying that the FCC under the Trump administration did away with what was called the Open Internet Order, which was a national net neutrality regulation. That went away under Trump. And California responded by saying, okay, well, we're going to basically duplicate the Open Internet Order here in California with a few tweaks. And they did. And of course, that was challenged in court. And what happened just this last week is the Ninth Circuit, which is our Circuit Court of Appeals in this part of the world, decided that that California law could actually stand. The other side had argued that it was preempted by federal law. There are, certain things that the states aren't supposed to touch because it's the province of federal law. And interstate commerce tends to be one of those sort of hallmark things. But the Ninth Circuit decided no, because there was this reclassification of net neutrality from Title II to Title I. So we're going from common carriers to information services, that this actually takes it out of federal preemption and leaves it to the states. So that's what the Ninth Circuit decided. I'm sure at some point another circuit will decide something else for that part of the country, which means this will wind up in front of the Supreme Court.
That's the question for you.
Yes.
Because remember, let's call a spade a spade. Ajit freaking Pai, who managed to get the net neutrality order out, then said, and by the way, you states, you do it. And then California said, oh, yeah, stop me. And and Ajit sued. But the Ninth Circuit Court, which is very liberal, said the FCC has given up their authority to preempt this by saying, this is kind of interesting, that internet access is an information service.
Yeah.
That was the whole debate. Now, this is for the Ninth Circuit. It's federal, right?
Yes, that's the Federal Court of Appeals for our part of the world. And I really, different people will say, yes, there are political overtones to net neutrality, but I have a hard time thinking of it as a political issue where,
I agree
or
too,
a conservative.
But everything's political nowadays. That's
right, exactly.
Unfortunate.
But small businesses definitely benefit from net neutrality. So
this was ISPs brought this suit, right?
Yes.
Like Verizon, AT&T.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're going to
cable
either
ISPs,
see this go to the Supreme Court or the next move on the chessboard or on the tennis table. I'm mixing my metaphors. There has been a hope that perhaps Congress would act on this and take this off the tennis table, at least as far as we're going back and forth in the courts, and then it goes to the federal circuit, and then back to the states. And, Congress could circumvent all that by just enacting a net neutrality law. So we'll see if
that would be nice. I don't hold
any of that happens.
Hold high hopes for that. But
yes.
At least the Ninth Circuit has upheld it.
Yes.
And maybe that will be enough, although I think the National Cable Television Association will probably pursue this farther. And, of course, in other states will bring up this and so forth and so on.
Right. And then the other sort of coda to that is, of course, if this does wind up in front of the Supreme Court and lots of other tech policy issues are, coming down the pipe to the Supreme Court, I guess it's worth mentioning that Justice Breyer announced his retirement and a replacement for him is being sought. And there's a really nice piece I really love the Washington Post's Cybersecurity 202. If folks are not reading that, it is a great publication. And Joseph Marks and Aaron Schaffer there did a nice summary of what Breyer's retirement and the impact on the court might be, what sort of issues the court can be expected to take on in the next several years. And as they point out, Justice Breyer was never really involved in a lot of tech policy decisions. So it's not exactly leaving a void there, but that it also appears none of the judges being considered to replace him have a lengthy track record in cyber and privacy cases. But as they point out, they're all in their 40s or 50s, which may suggest a closer familiarity with technology and its pitfalls than some of the older justices. So we can just keep our fingers crossed that whoever replaces Breyer has a little bit more sort of real world experience with the kinds of technologies that they're going to be making important decisions about.
And more importantly, what was the name of that thing that you put your phone in so you wouldn't lose it on the slopes?
Oh, it is called, yes, the chat room was already clamoring, so I put it there. It's called the Hang Time Koala.
And by the way, it benefits
Hashtag.
koalas if you get one, right?
Hashtag not an ad.
Koala, did you get the Koala 2.0 Super Grip?
I did. It works very well.
I'm thinking for Abby, because she breaks her phone very regularly, maybe, although if you're not skiing and you're wearing this, you might look a little strange. But it's a rubber clip that holds the phone and keeps you from dropping it. And when you get a koala, you help a koala because they give 20% for koala habitat. They must be from Australia, right?
I would think.
Yeah.
I didn't research it much when I bought. I just clicked on the ad, like with your underwear.
Yeah. Was it the middle of the night?
This one actually, yeah.
No, you needed this one.
This one actually is a quality product.
You needed
well.
this one. Yes.
Yes, I did.
Don't put it in the wash, though.
No.
Anything, Harry, that you think we should be thinking about this week in the tech world?
In terms of things that intrigued me, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about a potential Apple spring event, maybe with a genuinely new MacBook Air, which makes sense because they've barely touched it since the second generation one from years ago. So potentially very exciting. I mean, they did an all new MacBook Pro last year and an all new iMac, so the time is kind of right.
I'm loving. I have the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro, and it's just a beautiful laptop. But you've tempted me with that XPS, the Dell XPS, I must say.
I'm tempted. It's really nice.
I wasn't going to get it because I thought, well, they put a trackpad on it. I don't like the trackpad, but it sounds like it's better than just a trackpad. It's not quite a trackpad.
No, they kind of went their own way.
And I think, Jason, you sound like you liked it as well.
So Dan Ackerman from CNET had a really great opinion of it, and he's my guru when it comes to these.
Every XPS for years. I was a big fan of the XPS series, so maybe it's time. And also, by the way, they always run Linux really nicely because I'm not buying another Windows machine, that's for sure. Thank you. You are awesome. Jason Heiner, he is now officially editor-in-chief at ZDNet. He's a big shot, but he still deigns to appear on this little show. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Still in Louisville, right, though?
Still in Louisville.
Still in Louisville. All right. It's great to see you again. Denise Howell, I miss you. It's wonderful to see you and your fisherman's sweater.
Thank you. Yes. Reel him in. I guess I wore this in honor of the nor'easter.
Yeah. Well, you're in, I think in Southern California, you're probably okay.
Yes.
But
this is definitely overkill for our climate today.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And,
my pleasure.
And of course, thank you so much, Mr. Harry McCracken. Give my regards to Marie. He's the editor at Fast Company, technology editor. Does great stuff. We look forward to more from you in Fast Company. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Leo. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks to all of you for joining us. We do This Week in Tech of a Sunday afternoon around 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, 22:30 UTC. If you would like to join us live, you can. The live audio and video streams are at live.twit.tv. The chat room is at irc.twit.tv. You can also chat with us in our Discord server. That's for members of Club Twit. If you're not a member of Club Twit, $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all of our shows, access to the Discord and the Twit Plus feed with some unique shows that we don't put out on the regular podcast feeds, like our Untitled Linux show, Stacey Higginbotham's Book Club, The Giz Fizz, and a brand new show This Week in Space. The very first one comes out later this week on the Twit Plus feed with Rod Pyle and his co-host Tarek from who's Tarek from Space.com, right? I think so, yeah. Anyway, it's a great show and it's going to be very good, but right now members only. So if you want to know more, $7 a month. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks to our corporate members, too. We have a number of them now. There's a corporate membership available as well. twit.tv/club. Twit. After the fact, all the shows we do, including this one, are available at our website, twit.tv. You can also get a copy on YouTube. All of the shows up there. In fact, every show has its own YouTube feed. So if you go to youtube.com/twit, you'll find links to all of those. You can also subscribe in your favorite podcast player. If you do that, please leave us a 5-star review. Let the world know about This Week in Tech. If there could there be anyone who doesn't know about it? Possibly. But a 5-star review would let them know. We thank you all for being here, and we will see you next time. Another Twit.
This is
amazing.
amazing.
Bye-bye.
Doing the twit.